Welcome to Builders, the podcast for leaders who want to build great companies. I'm your host, Alex Snyder, strategic advisor to world-class builders. This podcast dives into the wild rides and personal transformations that come with pursuing big dreams and becoming a leader who builds incredible teams and companies. Each episode, I'm joined by a guest who helps deliver a fresh perspective designed to leave you feeling less lonely, more connected to innovative ideas, and inspired about growing your business your way. If you enjoy the show, don't forget to subscribe on your favorite channel, leave us a 5-star review, and share your favorite episode with a friend. The podcast is sponsored by Alex Snyder Advisory. If you are a business leader or executive team ready to take your leadership and company to the next level with a high-performing team, we'd love to see how we can rocket fuel your growth. Check out the show notes to book your free Builders Business Booster call, where you'll receive a strategic leadership audit and 3 concrete focus areas to mature and grow your business. All right, thanks for tuning in. Let's build. Aalia, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. You are a force to be reckoned with in so many ways. One of the most purpose-driven people I've had the pleasure to meet. Our origin story is interesting. I had to scroll way back in my phone. I'm not sure exactly what the trigger was, but somehow I sent you something on social media probably 5 years ago, and our energies just spoke to each other. We also got to meet in person at TIFF the following year, which was such a serendipitous pleasure. So I've seen you, even in this short amount of time, thrive, battle, transform, and alchemize and channel so much. And I'm so inspired by your drive to empower others. I'm so happy to have you here. You encompass multitudes. You're an international multiple award-winning novelist, a filmmaker, an impact investor, an executive producer, and the host of your award-nominated social good talk show, which I love, UNSUGARCOATED with Aalia. And I don't even think that scratches the surface. So there's so much I can't wait to dive into with you. But first, I would just love to invite you to introduce yourself a bit and share what you're working on.
Oh, I appreciate that so much. And I'm so excited that we get to do this together because, yes, I think it was around the time actually we connected on social media that I launched my first novel, Tough Love. And then I just organically like to grow my communities and connect with other people. And we were those kindred spirits. So thank you. And in addition to the things that you mentioned, which sound very big to a lot of people, I am just a woman. Well, I shouldn't say just, we should never put just, but I am a woman who really has gone through a lot. I think that professionally, people look at my life and then they never guess that I was homeless at 14, that I went through very difficult challenges entering into adulthood by myself without much support, was taken advantage of, and ended up in situations that were definitely not ideal. But at the same token, I launched my first business at 22, my first company at 25. I'm a mother of 4, a grandmother of a beautiful little grandson. And it continues to be a journey for me to just do the things professionally that have to be done in order to pay the bills and do the things right. That's the production. That's what my husband and I both do together. I'm also the CEO of Convergence Media Law Firm, which helps strategize for film financing, things like that. So that's the professional. But you are so right. I went through a lot and I couldn't look back and just leave those people behind, Alex. In fact, one time somebody said to me, even after my cancer battle, said, why do you still pay attention if you know it's going to hurt, right? When you lose somebody, it hurts. And he's like, why still be part of it? And I remember I said, how could I not? How could I turn my back on the people that helped me fight for my life and the communities? And so in continuing to be inspired by that, I just move forward, enjoying the opportunity to create social impact through storytelling. And whether it's through a book or a film or a short documentary or a long documentary or the Social Good podcast, or EmpowerCon, all I want to do is empower other people to see their resilience, develop skills that take them further in life, and build an amazing community of change makers and go-getters. And it's not going to attract everyone, but you know what? It does attract the right people.
I could not agree more. And I love what I want to highlight what you said, which is when I first met you, I just saw what you're doing now and thought you were an incredible, impressive woman who had an incredible capacity for compassion and drive and all of these things. And over the years, having learned more about your past, like you said, people just see what you now, and that's impressive enough. But actually, there's just so much behind that. And I'm wondering, I know it's a difficult topic, but would you be willing to share just a little bit for context around what being homeless at 14 was like, and a little bit about how the things that you went through shaped what maybe would be the first phase of your adulthood?
100%. I'll say this about my childhood. It was both amazing and heart-wrenching. I was a teenager that I think a lot of people would dub the black sheep. I was dubbed the black sheep in my family because I resisted some of the rules. I wanted attention. I wanted validation. I wanted to be valued as an individual. And sometimes depending on your family background, that you cannot feel that. And for me, when I was 14, I had already been molested between the ages of 4 and 7 years old. Not to trigger anyone, I won't go too deep, but I was sexually molested by 5 different men. Then between the ages as a early middle school going into teen, I was again molested and sexually assaulted. Being homeless, it was this feeling that I didn't belong anywhere. And I ended up sleeping in Kaiser ICU waiting rooms, which is a hospital system. And I thought of it, I thought it was clever because I said, at least in a hospital, there's cover, there's shelter. I went into the chapel and I figured I'd stay in the ICUs because who would question somebody being there all night? I hoped that someone would assume I had a family member that was sick, and that would explain why this 14-year-old girl was sitting in a waiting room crying her eyes out. So, yeah, how I felt about it and how I still feel about it when I talk about it, of course, it was lonely. It was frustrating to feel like my family doesn't understand me. And I will say, through the same token, good fortune was there for me because I would meet a family. I met a family that I knew from school, and then they took me in, and that gave me a little bit of breath for a little bit until I was transferred to the next place that I had to go to because that family didn't want me. They didn't want to keep me. Nobody was just coming in and raising me because I was a 14, 15, heading into 15. I ended up in a Bible college that accepted me early, and I spent the next 3 years as part of an extremely religious church, and I learned a lot. I do not regret anything, Alex, though. That is the thing. I can't lie. So when you ask me how it shaped me, it definitely made me resilient. I shouldn't say made me resilient. I think I was already resilient, but it forced me to lean on that resiliency to get through it. And just day by day, I grew stronger. And even when tragedy struck in my life, I can't lie, that fighting spirit, I always say nobody puts baby in a corner, right? And that's whenever something traumatic, catastrophic would happen, my welfare was endangered, I would just kick into this solution orientated mode. I don't even know where it came from, but I would find a way out. Having experienced homelessness it's a big part of my story because I know what it's like to be at the bottom, to not have anything, to not know where you're going to go at night, to not have anywhere to sleep. And to be a child with that feeling is definitely something that I let people know I went through. So don't judge a book by its cover. And I'm just grateful for the ways that I was able to make it through that. And now that is why I want to help others, continue to help others throughout my life. When I was 18 years old, I would go into orphanages in Tecate, Mexico, and go spend time because I always had a heart for what I went through. How could I ease somebody else's suffering? I might not be able to fix it all, change it. I wish I had that magic wand, but how can I, in this moment, make a positive impact, a glimmer of hope to somebody who deserves it just as much as I did?
Thank you so much for sharing. And yeah, obviously I hear that and it hurts my heart to hear that you went through it. But if I put my entrepreneur hat on, or I hear resourcefulness, always finding a way forward, managing to do a lot with a little. And it makes me think despite such a traumatic start, I know you started public speaking at, I think, 21, and you had your first company also in your early 20s, both ends of the spectrum of the extremes, you know? What were you speaking about at that age, and how did that kind of lead into your first business?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so first of all, I actually started speaking at 18, and how I started, I'm gonna be totally honest. It was just with a heart. It was with a heart. I was speaking to youth, not surprisingly. I went into actually my old middle school and would talk to youth about faith. I would talk to them about different things, just the experience that they were having. And I, at that moment, just tried to be even whatever role model I could be. I think that these things also did make me more mature in some ways, even though I was 18, 19, 20. You're still growing up. You're still figuring things out. And then shortly after that, I'll be quite transparent with you. I inadvertently stole a car from a car dealership that I took. I came to test drive a vehicle. He said, take it home, go show your friends. I don't know why he told a teenager. I said, by myself? He said, yeah, take it. And there's a whole explanation that now as an adult, I've gone back, I've dissected, and I understand that my issue was fear, right? I did not like confrontation. And so he gives me this opportunity. I go home, I'm hanging out. I'm taking the car for a ride. And he starts texting me, or to give an idea, this is like mobile pager days. So he's texting my pager, and he's leaving me voice messages on the pager of like, where are you? You need to come back. And he started getting aggressive. I'm not blaming him, but the way that I was like scared, I'm like, now you're aggressive. And now I'm afraid to confront you. I'm just going to stay at home with this car. And 3 days later, I was arrested for grand theft auto.
Oh my God.
The only stupid decision I made in my life, but it's definitely one that takes the cake for sure, because I ended up having to sit in jail. I served I paid for my crime. I paid price for it. And even in that experience, I walked out of jail understanding that my time and my freedom are definitely the most important things that we have, right? Your ability to walk outside and go smell the air when you want to. Till you've gone through an incarceration, you don't understand and value how simple that blessing is. In what I was talking about, without sharing actually some of my personal story, I'll be honest, outside of the homelessness, of course, the incarceration, I stuffed that down real low. Once I got done with it, I was ashamed. I didn't want people to judge me. I didn't want that to be the only thing people thought of when they saw me. So for a long time, that was a skeleton in my closet, Alex. I did not talk about that. But now at this point in my life, not only for other people that have unfortunate incidents and they do become incarcerated, I think that exactly from where I'm at now, people need to have hope. People need to know that second chances do exist, that one or two even mistakes that you make, they do not define your life. And in the ways that I could, that is what I started speaking about so early. And then, of course, over the years, it developed into entrepreneurship because, yeah, I am one hell of an entrepreneur. Let me tell you, I am resourceful. I know how to get things done. I do it. I understand that what you put into things, you will get out of. And just being able to share that over the years is what I focused on doing. Not a coach. People sometimes, oh, you're a coach. I said, I'm not a coach. I love mentoring the world in my own way of healing and guidance and wisdom that I have acquired in the nearly 50 years I've been on this planet, half a century, which sounds weird. Although my 6-year-old firmly believes I'm still 26 because look, God bless that child. She's probably keeping me. She's manifesting. Not that I look 26. She definitely does not believe I'm almost 50. And I just say that to say it's been a journey of helping others along the way, again, see their resilience. I encourage people to develop that personal development in their life and understand the impact that it has, whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish.
I love that. We're going to keep going because there's so much more to your story, but I'm wondering at this point, can we talk about what were maybe some of the main lessons from your first entrepreneurial experience? Being an entrepreneur in your early 20s is different than in your 50s. Your experience, your community, everything is different. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that, just thinking about the range of people that might be listening.
Of course. And I love that because you're absolutely right. The entrepreneur I am today is vastly different from the entrepreneur I was just to survive. And, why I started in entrepreneurship was because of what I had gone through. I wasn't going to allow a little box at the bottom of the application dictate my life or dictate the value that I knew I brought to the world at large, whether it was working for someone or working for myself. My mother was also an entrepreneur. I did have the good fortune of watching my mother build businesses herself, fail at times. She owned a financial consulting firm. And I remember as a little girl, I'd go in there and read her pamphlets and tell her when there were errors and proofread her stuff. But yes, then it was not understanding. I have to admit this. Early in my entrepreneurship, I didn't understand that network was critical to it, to be honest. I was raised with one of those families that's very, if you're not blood, we don't trust you, right? Like the circle is small. But here's the thing, you can have a small circle for sure. But as I started to mentor and help other people understand their capacity to do business, I would get questions like, I don't know enough people to build a business. But you do. If you have children in school, you've got other parents, you have a community that you are part of, whether you recognize it, whether you're tapping into it or not. And because I really had to experience a mindset shift, that I don't have to do this all alone, that I do have a community I can lean on. And you also have to have the mindset shift that you are not bugging or bothering, but you're giving people an opportunity. And when you really stand strong in that, it becomes a different journey. So the person I am today in entrepreneurship does not fear that somebody is going to tell me no. I go by the guise of a closed mouth does not get fed. And I remember earlier in my entrepreneurship, probably around 10 years in, somebody gave me this beautiful gem. They shared with me the statistic that if I died tomorrow, maybe half the people, maybe even a third of the people I know would actually go to my funeral, right? And if it was raining, half of that. So it really changed my mind on why am I afraid of people understanding or knowing and having an opportunity to support what I'm doing, right? That is a big difference, I would say, that I've learned. We've been out promoting from PowerCon, which I know you're going to talk about in a second, but I've had we have an international internship program. So we have interns from all over the world that come and work with us. I've been having them out on the street, handing out flyers, promoting the event to people, trying to get other people to understand the value. And you should see it when they're like, somebody walks by, nobody wants to take it. There's that person who's like, no, not me. And I'm teaching them, do not care what anyone else thinks. It's okay. You go on to the next. And if you stay focused on that, you will overcome any challenge you have in your career because you won't be concerned about what people think. You will only be concerned about the result that you're creating with the effort that you're putting in. That to me is one of the biggest lessons I've learned.
I love that. Listening to you brought back so many actual memories for me. And I think sometimes, like you said, you started from a place of, I just have to, and not in any way of the same spectrum. But I remember I was extremely shy and growing up, and I worked from a very early age, and I, lived on my own and worked in a bar. And I had, at one point, they said, go to the stadium and hand out these like ticket coupons to bring people, like, so during a hockey match. And I remember being like, I'm sorry, what? And this is nothing. You're just handing out coupons to a bar, like, who cares? But for somebody who like was so introverted, and I was like 17, and I was like, what? And then having to go and just do it because like my job and paying my rent depended on it, was like, okay. And then I think as I've gotten older, realizing that when you have kind of purpose and you care about something, particularly if it's a little bit outside of yourself, that becomes easier. And so finding that meaning, I'll be honest, it's something I still struggle to do for myself, but I will be out pitching something that I believe in or I care about. And just that is such an incredible skill, and learning to not be held up by the potential perceived judgments of others, let alone real judgment. I do think that's powerful. And I know for myself, having gone through so many evolutions and reinventing myself, it's absolutely something. If you had asked me a couple years ago whether I would be doing lives on my LinkedIn, like even talking about what I do now on my LinkedIn with my entire history of colleagues and peers, took me months to do. I was really protective of it.
Yeah, I love that you say that.
Sorry, I think we had a moment of feedback there, but yeah, and i- uh, I'd love to hear what you're thinking, but definitely what I look back and realize, and I knew it in the moment, right? You have those periods where you're self-aware enough, but like still not moving your ass. It wasn't doing me any favors, right? Not talking about what I was doing in front of my network wasn't doing anything good for me. I had that period where I knew, but there was still the like internal things that slowed me down. But we got there. I would love to hear what you think of that. And then I have actually a quick follow-up question for you.
I love that and appreciate that. No, I was just going to say, people are shocked when I actually share with them I'm shy. And in fact, going back to the story about my experience with the incarceration, in that story, you can hear I was so afraid. I have a quick anecdotal story I want to share with you. When I was 5 years old, my mother, I was walking behind her. My grandparents had this in-law above their garage and very steep steps. We were staying with them for a while. And my mom was walking down the stairs in front of me. She fell. She tumbled down the stairs. She's laying on the floor. Thank God there was no car, but she's laying on the floor and she says, she whispers to me, okay, grandma. And I am like, okay. So I go to my grandparents' door. I'm 5 years old. I'm in kindergarten. And I just remember holding my hand up to the door, contemplated, and I hesitated, and I contemplated, and I finally went back to my mother and she said, did you get them? I said, everything will be fine. I walked back to the living room. I grabbed my jacket and I walked to school. This is a reflection of, again, family culture. You don't wake up grandma and grandpa, no matter what. These were not people, my family was very strict. This is 1979, 1980. It was a very different time. And I was so petrified that I would rather leave her on the ground. And even when I came home, they said, she's in a cast and around her neck. And they're like, why didn't you say anything? And I said, because I didn't want to get in trouble. And even then, just to reinforce this, they said, if something like that happens again, just go in quietly and go over to grandmother. Instead of saying, oh, but listen, that's a serious issue. Come in, wake us up. That's 2023 mentality, right? 1980 was still. So this cultivated a very huge fear of confrontation, of authority. And exactly like you said, I moved through that. And I'm grateful to have other people because it is a superpower, my friend. It is absolutely a superpower. And I'm so glad that you've changed and adjusted because, yeah, it is a shift. So bravo to you for sure.
I love that you shared that story because I do think there's an element of time, right? There's eras, and I can relate to the fear of getting in trouble almost being like paralyzing. I want to be mindful of our time because there's so much I want to talk to you about. But yeah, there are some stories of my time where like the fear of getting in trouble and it stays with us. And while I do think there are eras, I do think that also like we get to be really mindful in our lives of that shows up for people in so many ways. And it's definitely something that I'm always trying to think about. What is my reaction to something? What am I feeling and what's that actually coming from? And try to be compassionate to others as well, to not judge someone's reaction or not take them personally. I think that's like such a big part of entrepreneurship and life. You mentioned community, and I'm wondering, community, not being alone, knowing that you can share, knowing that you're supported, feeling like you can speak and ask. And I know, and maybe I'm jamming a lot of things together here, but you exited a toxic marriage. You left behind what I believe was a multi-million-dollar business. You've gone through cancer and come out the other side in remission, but also with some autoimmune disorders, which I also can relate to the struggle of living with those. So I'm just wondering if you can maybe elaborate on what you learned from those or how you leveraged that knowledge and learning about community and being more open there and how that's compounded and built upon itself.
Yeah, I love that. And thank you. And I really love being able to share this because as I started building businesses closer to my 30s, I started to understand the network. Okay, you definitely want to make friends and you can be part of bigger communities, being part of just community as far as with the Middle Eastern community, things like that, and where I lived. I had started to expand, but being part of the cancer community was really where a lot changed for me. I was in a hospital bed. I had gone basically the entire first portion of my battle, not telling almost anybody about what I was dealing with. One, I didn't want the sympathy. I didn't want not sympathy. I just didn't want to be like, oh, poor her. People, you hear cancer and oh, I'm so sorry, and it's wow, I'm not dead yet. I'm here. Thank you. I know you're sorry. I'm going through this. It can be a bit of a pity, and you don't want people's pity. At least that's how I thought about it at first. And I was in a hospital bed. It came to a point where I was in a hospital bed. I had nothing but a Wi-Fi connection in my laptop, thankfully. And I just plugged in cancer support group into Facebook. And there became a group, or there was a group I became part of. At that time, it was called OMG, I'm Too Young for This. It was really geared for the 19 to 40 demographic of cancer fighters. To this day, Alex, those people that reached back to that night, there are a handful of those people that are still part of my life today. So this initial contact that I'm not alone, that there are other people out there. They don't have to have the same cancer as me, but suddenly we have these conversations. Oh, do you have a PICC line? Do you have a Hickman? What type of cancer do you have? What's your situation? Suddenly other people understood my journey on some level. And that changed the way that I fought for my life, genuinely. In the cancer community, you got people who are also going through things. So they're going to give you your days where you have rough days, but they're also going to tell you on days that you need to hear it. Listen, we love you. We know it's tough, but pick your butt up and fight. They're not going to sugarcoat it. They're not going to tell you. And so I gained so much value. The second step, once I got better, once I started to feel better, at least, I went to my first cancer conference, and it wasn't a funnel selling me into something more. It was just a place in which other people were part of my community. We came together. We were educated together. We networked together. We grew together. We cried together. We laughed together. And I went home, and we all went home to our each respective corners in the world. And then we stayed connected. And it was such a beautiful thing. Now, for me, I love the cancer community. But as we've talked about, I'm also a survivor of multiple traumas. And so while that was a bigger part of my community while I was sick, and I went into remission one time, I came out of remission, I went back into remission, and I've stayed in remission since then. But to be honest, my sights are set on, because I'm a survivor of domestic violence, I'm a survivor of sexual abuse, different things that I want to help more than just the cancer community. That experience just gave me an overwhelming understanding of how valuable it is, as well as the personal development that you get from these experiences. And yeah, so I think I said the pretty question, but genuinely, that was my initial experience that led me down the path of everything that I'm doing today. And I love being part of other communities, as well as developing our own change makers, go-getters, and then just continuing those efforts in the way that we can.
I love that. Yes, absolutely. And you answered the question, I think, and so much more. And thank you for sharing. Again, you really have been through so many pivotal moments in life. And I guess as I was listening to you, some of the reflections that were coming to mind, I had a good friend of mine, Mike Hales, on a few episodes ago speaking, and the title was Not Alone. And it was how I ended up founding a men's mental health organization. And it was because he had been through the low of the lows and realized that going it alone and holding it in was the way to not be here in that case. And as he began to open up, there was so much connection and there was support. And I know it wasn't, like you said, it wasn't pity. It was people saying, actually, I've been there and I'm not there today. So I can either tell you how it is or hold space or kind of sense what you need. And that's really driven his purpose as well. So I love that you shared that. And I think if I'm to reflect that too, in general, the more we open up, the more we will find, like you said, the right people. It won't appeal to everyone. Not everyone will understand, but there are people out there. There's so many people in this world. Nothing that we go through is that unique. Your experience may be different, but there are people that will understand it. And I think as entrepreneurs, we've chosen a different path. So the more you can surround yourself with other people on that path, they're going to see and understand things from a perspective that is, I would say, much more fueling to your goal than potentially your friends or family who are not in the entrepreneurial space and just don't have the same perspective. And it's not to say they don't add value, but there is a value to that. And also something that kind of came to mind was, even as a leader and your team and as an entrepreneur and your client, be more authentic, the better, because actually almost everything in our life comes out of connection. And people are people by people. People decide to work and be loyal to people. And so I think what you're speaking about of how you opened up, you became more, you found people who saw you and heard you, but also held you accountable, is really powerful on all of those fronts. And hopefully I haven't taken any of your words too far out of context. So let's switch gears a little bit, because you are a novelist, and I definitely want to talk about UNSUGARCOATED and EmpowerCon, but I would love to touch on, how did you become a novelist? What drives you to write and to publish books?
I love that. I will tell everyone, I've always been a writer. I think that when you really start writing, you realize, oh, wait, I've always been this. I've always been, I'm not gonna say, like, I always had this fantastic mind as a youth. I was very imaginative, and I would build forts, and I wanted to live in the Elizabethan age and be able to say hath and thou. And I was very theatrical. But coming back to the opportunity to write novels, to me, it meant it's a message, right? It's messaging within it. And it was 2017. I had just had my fourth daughter, and I had known that I always wanted to write at least a part of my life. People had always told me, Aalia, your life is a book. And mind you, I haven't even begun to really scratch the surface on some of the things that we've talked about, even in that first biographical novel that I wrote. But I did use it as an opportunity to take on the conversation of toxic relationships. The idea that love is an emotion, it's a powerful one, but it can also be misleading. And there's a lot of people in unhealthy relationships that don't know how to give themselves permission to leave. And to this day, I am still asked by my teenage daughter, who's now a teenager, who was the small child when things were happening, such as the domestic violence, such as the mental abuse, such as the things that I experienced. Why did you stay? I still get asked that, why did you stay? And for me, my novels are a way to tell the story. And whether it's a lot of the negativity that we have in our world, and that's part of it, right? It's scientific that you can't have a positive energy without a negative energy. It's how we are all formed. So the yin and the yang is part of life, but how can we be champions of positive change through storytelling? And that was the only way that I wanted to be a writer and be a novelist. And I decided that instead of just telling a story to tell it, I wanted to tell stories with purpose. And a lot of people do feel that their stories do that. Do not get me wrong. I'm not everybody necessarily wants to take on some of the social issues. And that to me is important and at the forefront of what I do, whether it's through the documentaries, through the novels, through the other things that we produce. But yeah, it was exciting. And I'll say this, the novel, I just started writing. A lot of people are like, how did you have time? You had a newborn child, you had other kids. I'm like, I know. I don't even know how I did it. I just know that I planned for the time. I planned for the time to make my dream happen. Was it easy? No. Was I exhausted? Yes. But did I get it done? Absolutely. And I moved forward. I didn't focus on being perfect. I focused on doing, because thankfully as writers, we can revise. Like I go back to my first work and of course I'm like, oh, I could do this so much better. Oh my God, if I can do this over. But that's okay. And I've always enjoyed writing and I have to say that I have a distinct memory in ninth grade, distinctly writing a short story for my class that even my teacher at that time was like, everyone was so surprised. They're like, okay, we didn't expect that. So I love looking back and saying I was always a writer. I wrote for my businesses, right? That's what made me a good marketer. That's what made me successful because I understood communication and effective communication. So, yeah, that's definitely how that journey started. And where I'm at now, there's a third novel coming out, once again, taking on social issues, but definitely excited to do it.
That is so exciting. So, like we said, you've got the novels. You also have Unsugarcoated Media, which you're the CEO of. It is a nonprofit business that encourages a network of individuals to really look at how they can contribute positively to humanity, which it sounds like a sweeping statement. Can you tell us like a little bit more about how you came to move into a media company as your vehicle for this purpose?
Yes. A lot of people don't know that back in the day, one of my first career moves and one of the things that I was able to launch as a business was actually in music. So I worked with entertainment. I've been around entertainment all my life. I had uncles who were comedians, and I saw people straddle entertainment with media in intriguing ways. And I can't lie, PBS was something that would come to my mind. I'm like, PBS can be a production company, but produce certain content, have a certain brand. How could I do something like that, but edgier? Because God bless PBS, which is the public broadcasting system here in America, in case anyone else doesn't know, which had Sesame Street and like Mr. Rogers. Those were great. But I wanted to take on issues a little bit more truthful because, to your point, I feel that as creatives, as writers, we are the pioneers of the human mind. And we are people that create the stories that people use to understand each other, right? That's why movies is such a big deal to everyone. Unsugarcoated media is definitely representative of whether we're publishing books, whether we're making movies, whether we're creating events, podcasts, whatever. Again, how can we create social impact, a positive social impact through those works? And so that's why it is a 501c3 enterprise, media enterprise. And I wanted to do something different. I took all that I'd learned from working with artists, working in media, and saying, okay, let's do this. And it's been such an incredible journey. I can't lie. We have fun. We inspire other people to do their own works. And to me, that's all I'm asking for is other people to be on the journey with us, support what we're doing, and we are a community of people who get up every day to do dope things. That's what I say.
I love that. I think that's a great slogan. So, where did EmpowerCon come from in that process? And tell us a little bit about it.
Thank you. EmpowerCon. Okay, if I go back, remember I shared that I went to OMG cancer summits, right? Like the summits that I started going to, think those were the first of that kind that I've ever been to. Of course, I'd been to other different types of personal development for entrepreneurship, but this was different. And I loved it. I loved it. And then on top of that, I had the good fortune still through my entrepreneurship to have personal development training with David Bird, Jack Canfield, some of the most incredible personal development leaders in the world and recognized names. And that impact that it gave to me, I'm like, oh, I want to give this to other people. So we merged that. And essentially, I was having a conversation with my friend, also from Toronto, Anshal Vash, who will be coming from Toronto to speak for the second time at EmpowerCon. And they said, I'd love to create an event that focuses on three things. And it's broken down in the sessions. The sessions are curated to represent each of these sections, each of these thought process. So one is that admit the issues we have going on in society. We can't pretend that they don't exist. I know that they make sometimes people uncomfortable, but let's just be real. Let's be unsugarcoated about it. Let's admit we got some serious issues. And especially right now in a post-pandemic phase, we have education crisis, mental health crisis. We have things that we have many people suffering that don't have to, shouldn't have to, but they are. So admitting that is the first step. The second is ask. Admit, ask. Okay, ask the questions that hopefully get us closer to solutions that address these issues authentically and honestly. And then the third session is based on adjust. So it comes with training workshops that we've now admitted, we've now asked. Now let's adjust our mindset. Let's give ourselves more tools to actually be able to address these issues in our societies. My goal is that everyone leaves with something that makes them a better person for themselves for their self-love, for their self-value, for their self-worth. But then also they go home, and what happens? That energy exudes, right? So now you're a force within your family. Now you're a positive force within your workplace or your community, in your church, wherever it is. You are a light. You've gotten that torch. And this isn't something that, to me, it stays with you one time, you get it, and it happens forever, right? Alex, it's a continual journey. We talked about reinventing yourself too, and reinventing yourself is okay, but part of that process is gaining information that helps you grow and learn into that new version of yourself, that better, optimal version, optimal performing version of yourself. So EmpowerCon is an event specifically hoping to do that. Not just hoping, we've done it. Like the last EmpowerCon, another woman who came up and asked questions. She subsequently wrote her book. We're so honored to feel that we gave her encouragement. We gave her a path, a blueprint to go out and chase her dreams and accomplish the things she wanted to do. But EmpowerCon, it's us giving you a little bit of light. We're giving you some light to your own burning desire for a better life for yourself. And with that, you take it home and you shine. And then if it's EmpowerCon next year, or maybe it's another event, because EmpowerCon is not the only event, but I think that people often miss the value, an experience like that, and how it can really set you on fire in a good way. And that's what we want to do. And that journey just said, okay, look, like you said, I'm not a person who waits around for someone to give me an opportunity. I will find a way to create the opportunity for myself. So when Anshal and I said, we should do this, next thing I'm renting the LA Convention Center, I'm pulling stuff together, and we just do it. And where EmpowerCon is right now is not, it's really still only the beginning. We've been on hold for 3 years due to the pandemic. We're definitely struggling with, okay, we're getting re-engaged. Don't be afraid, come out of your houses, come to this, understand it, experience it, and be part of it. But this is not even representative of where we're going to be 5-10 years, where I believe at this event. We've already been invited to bring it to London. And even if that doesn't happen immediately, just the fact that somebody else saw value and said, hey, bring this to our country. We really need that. That in itself is a huge honor. That's how EmpowerCon started. And I'm just really grateful and thankful that we're getting to bring it back, truly.
I love it. And I love Anshel. She's like you. The two of you, it's just like idea to action is seamless, which is incredible. As you were speaking, it popped to mind. We often have a lot of phrases in society, things like, you survived 100% of your worst days. I'm curious, what's your take on statements like that? Are they helpful? Are those in alignment with how EmpowerCon works? It seemed like you had a lot of tools and perspectives that you're bringing in. And I think this can sometimes be a blanket statement, but also a good reminder.
Yeah, I love that. I think that it's one of those things of depends on when you're saying it and how you're saying it. Because I agree, right? Like I am the sum of all parts of my life. And this is true. This is true. Where there's a will, there is a way. Oh, the quips I was raised with, girl. But I got another one. The mat says welcome, not wipe your feet. I love that one too. But the truth of the matter is, I think that something like that, it depends on how you're using it. Because it's no differently than, and I'll give you an example that may seem like it relates, but it doesn't. Like I had 3 miscarriages before I was able to have my first daughter. And every time it happened, the nurse would come in and say, this is just the universe's way. This is just what happened. And I would say, I don't want to hear that. I do not want to hear you telling me that. And it wasn't until I actually did have my first child that suddenly those comments weren't as mean, because hindsight's 2020. Maybe I recognized that, okay, I have this child now. If I had that child, I wouldn't have this child. And you start going through these, all right, maybe the universe did have a plan. I don't understand why, but guess what? It's okay. I think that comments like that, when they're used in the right way, they are meaningful because it creates that affirmation in your mind. I am a survivor, right? I am beautiful. I am courageous. I have survived all the stuff that was supposed to take me out. And you had said something earlier that when it does come to that, you said until you've experienced those lows, it is not until you've experienced the lowest of lows that you can appreciate the beauty of the mountaintops. I think Richard Nixon said something along those lines. And I find that a lot of those quips, if you're saying it to yourself, if you're reminding yourself of that, it's good to have because it's true. It's that daily affirmation for yourself that you've gotten through it. And like you're even fortunate because for me, I've always said, it could be worse. It could be worse. It could be worse. That is the truth. I'm not trying to dismiss or even look down on what other people are going through, But that is the sign of a resilient person who, no matter what you're facing, you understand it could be worse. Event plus response equals outcome. How do I move forward from this? And to me, that's definitely a way to get through it. But if someone's saying it to me and they're just like blanketly saying it and just trying to cheer me up or make me feel better, it does depend. But I can see how those do empower people, those comments. And I definitely can appreciate them a lot for my own life, for sure.
Yeah, I think it's like you said, often if we're harnessing it and reminding ourselves, like we can generate a lot of power, but sometimes if it's coming from the wrong person at the wrong time, it can feel really invalidating. I'm curious, how does empowerment link to leadership for you? And maybe that's in general. You said people take this back and they shine that light out and it lights the way for others. But also maybe how you run your businesses and your team.
I love that. And I want to remind everybody, a captain steers the ship, but a leader charts the course. Okay. To me, leadership is not telling my people what to do. That's why I say I get out there, I hand them flyers. I'm the first one. I have no problem saying anything I ask of you, I can do myself. I don't need you, but I want you to be part of this and I want you to grow. Leadership in that aspect for me has been very much of just being a role model and teaching people how to. I'm very thoughtful. I try to be, at least. I don't know my team, hopefully they agree, but I think they do. They learn a lot from me because part of, again, charting that course is not just making a decision and then delegating to execute it, but more importantly, explaining why, what's the benefit, what's the meaning of this. We don't have our team create social media just to create it. We have the conversations about what branding is, what is really connecting with an audience. Going back to my music days when we used to take artists to like Sam Goody and Warehouse, and then they would do the autographs and stuff. And I'm really dating myself when I say those things, I'm aware. But that is connection was the way that you established that person when a record dropped, that the person was going to be calling up Warehouse. Do you have it in yet? Do you have it in? So with anything that you're doing with what I do, my style of leadership, it is empowering somebody because by teaching, by helping them grow, by being invested in how what their experience is, that is really, to me, that the part that stands separately from just, okay, I'm your boss, you tell me. And also, I can't lie, I've owned retail stores, I've owned professional businesses, and in each capacity, I not only want to empower the people working for me, I want to empower the community that I'm either providing services or selling to. So I've always been driven by things that let people know I'm not in it just for this momentary transaction. We want to build a relationship and we want to establish that we're not here to harm you. We're not here to take from you. We're here to work together. And to me, that's to everyone around me, that's the leadership style that I have and that I will always walk in, no matter what industry I'm in.
There's so many great points and nuggets in there. You talked about where EmpowerCon is now and that you have really big visions for it. What is the ultimate goal of EmpowerCon?
Our goal is to have a great time this year, bringing it back. Then our goal is to continue. I'll be honest, for the past couple of years, I've mostly financed this event because, again, just having time and bandwidth and producing and stuff. And so it was more critical to bring it back instead of waiting around for other people to necessarily understand and see the value yet. So we're excited because this one we're definitely going to create, we're going to capture more content about it. We're going to share with the world, what it is more in a bigger capacity. And like I said, because we're already invited to do it internationally and similar to the cancer conferences that I used to attend as an inspirational model, that was one of the things that would be fun. We'd have it in Seattle one year. Maybe it was in New York one year. Maybe I can't remember where the other one, Vegas one year. So the long-term goal is for Empower to continue growing, continue impacting lives positively, and then take it around wherever people want us to come and the places that we feel give not only a community to be part of, but also an exciting experience. Because who doesn't want to get out and travel and then attend something fun and have this experience together? To me, that's definitely part of the vision. And I'm a big traveler, so I'm always looking for a reason to go somewhere.
Yeah, always a nice bonus when you can merge those two. We've talked a lot about reinventing or phases of life, getting to know yourself better. And we talked about being an entrepreneur in your 20s versus being an entrepreneur in your 40s. I'm curious, is there something that you know now that you wish you knew in your first phase of life or first, whatever you want to define that period as?
Yeah, I'll say this, and actually, I gotta give credit to my husband for this. It's a little, I get a little emotional every time I tell this story because it started as an observation. So I'm remarried to an amazing man, entertainment attorney, executive producer extraordinaire, done films with incredible people. He's such an amazing. I'm just so glad that the universe brought us together. And when we had my youngest daughter, it was his first child, and he would hold her in front of the mirror. 2 weeks old, when he'd hold her, he'd say, "Okay, repeat after me. I am beautiful. I am strong. I am courageous." Right? And he did this repeatedly. Oh my gosh, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. We had this big mirror. And all the time he'd sit her before there. And I remember observing this thinking, oh my gosh, how would I have turned out if that would have been the reinforcement in my life every day since I was born, right? Imagine the powerhouse that I would have been. And I can see this in my daughter, by the way. But I'm so grateful to him because what it did is it started from my own self. Like I started saying, and I'll say this really quick. I used to have a post-it note when I was struggling with cancer. I had a post-it note on my mirror that said, "I want to live. I want to watch my kids grow up. I want to give them lots of kisses. I do not want to die." So when we come back to this moment, it reminded me of how powerful that is to tell yourself that, to remind yourself of that. So it changed. And so for even me, that ability to look in the mirror and wholeheartedly know it, not just believe it, but to know I am beautiful, I am courageous, I am strong, not just for everything that I've gone through, but everything I still have to go through because I got a pulse still and I'm not done living. And so it really transformed even my own self-love and my self-identity as an individual. So flash forward to my daughter is now 6 years old. And when you ask Sophia, what are you? She knows the rules. She says, I am beautiful, I am strong, I am courageous. And I loved learning that our evolution becomes our revolution. And for me, that's all of what this is about.
Wow, I love that. That might just be the title of this. Any parting thoughts for budding entrepreneurs or those who are firmly in the trenches of entrepreneurship now?
Absolutely. And for those of you who get to make it to EmpowerCon, I'm actually having an expanded speech on this, but I've got to give this to you and I'll do it as quickly as I can. These are 3 critical things you need to understand and embrace as an entrepreneur. Resiliency, your ability to take on new challenges. In fact, if it makes you afraid, it's just taking you to a higher level, but understanding your resiliency is paramount. The second thing is actually your adaptability to stay in a state of flow, right? When things go wrong, sometimes they're going right. And instead of viewing as oh my God, this is a problem again, it's okay. We don't have a problem. We need to find a solution. We have a situation which needs a solution. So how can I change? How can I adapt so that I also protect my energy and my ability to deliver whatever it is I'm trying to deliver? And the third thing is the openness to grow and learn. You're never going to be old enough to learn. You're never going to know it all. So understanding that willingness to grow makes you a sharper iron in which you can go out there and cut out the things that you're not trying to have in this world, whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. The machete going through, I have this mind of going through the jungle of life, and you're sharpening your iron by being constantly willing to grow and understand new ways that you can do it, more effective ways. We live in a technological world that is constantly evolving. And then that challenges people, right? But there again goes back. You have the capacity to grow. You've been doing it. You have the ability to adapt. You've done it before. Don't be afraid. And then with that willingness to grow, you will find and tap into the success that you're looking for. And whatever success means for you, because success is different. It's not always the Mercedes or the Benz or the I'm sorry, I like the Rolls Royce. That's the one I was looking for. It's not always that. But whatever success means for you, those are the three key components to get you there. And that's my key advice to any budding entrepreneur.
I love it. I also love that it was 3 points as an ex-consultant. I'm like, yes. So I want to be mindful of your time. I'd love to run you through. We always have a few pop questions at the end. You can pass, you can have a word, you can tell us a story, whatever works for you. The first one maybe is just a reference to what you've already talked about, but is there an experience that's changed your life? Oh, wait, you want me to pick one?
All of them.
All right, we're gonna give you a pass on that because I think you've shared to your point, so many amazing moments. What does strategy mean to you? I love to take this to different people.
Oh, good question. Strategy, I do my chin. Strategy is contemplating. Strategy is understanding that there is a formula. Okay. I don't go into a kitchen and bake a cake without looking at a recipe. And how you use that recipe or the formula is going to dictate the outcome. If I use too much sugar, if I use too much flour, like all these things. Okay. There is a formula, and understanding formula is strategy. I love playing games. I teach over the summer, I taught her checkers, right? And I taught her even Chinese checkers, because to me, strategy is everything. It goes back to the solution issue. There's a problem. All right, I'm going to strategize on how to fix it. That's how you find your way out of problems, by being an expert at finding the strategy that's going to work for you.
I love it. And I think what you highlighted is there are different ways to achieve outcome. And you said earlier, success is defined by you. So there's so much in there for people around. Actually choose what success you want. And then there's different ways to get there. You don't have to get there the way everyone else is. Is there a book that has changed your perspective on something?
I will say it changed my perspective. And I talk about this. So that little stint I had in jail, I did do a lot of reading. And one of the books that I read was Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Birds Sing. The title alone, I knew what it meant just from reading the title. I knew I was a caged bird. And I knew I was this damaged young girl that had been through a lot of trauma. And I didn't even understand that then. But her book enabled me to understand, again, I was not alone. Maya Angelou in her book actually talks about committing a crime. And she was like, kind of pseudo managing a little brothel, and like she had her son and she had to run from the police, and then she recovered. She changed her ways after that. But my point was, oh, you mean I don't have to suffer for the rest of my life because of one? I almost feel like and I remember last time in EmpowerCon I said this, I was like, it's like the universe wanted me to read that book. And I joked that God could have done it a different way, and the universe could have done it, whatever someone believes me, could have just left me a Post-it note. But no, a Post-it note would have done just fine. But no, the message came through loud and clear.
Not the sign you wanted, but the sign you needed. Sometimes we don't get the short form. All right, last question. If you could go to any concert tomorrow, touring or not, dead or alive, combine whatever you like, what would it be?
All right, I'm going to have to say this because I'm not going to lie. Taylor Swift right now. I want to go to the Eras tour. I actually loved her documentary Americana. I have a lot of respect for her as a young artist or woman artist, everything that she's done, her heart. And dear goodness, it's like, from what I understand, incredible. So yeah, if I wasn't so busy doing EmpowerCon, I probably would have tried to make the Eras tour. But I'm excited for the movie to come out and her little movies. But yeah, definitely the Eras tour.
I love that. And I can see that for you because she is a force and a movement and, changing, I think, probably empowering a lot of people in different ways. And some will say floating part of the economy, right? Thank you, Aalia, so much for sharing this time with us. Where can people connect with you if they want to continue the conversation or get involved?
Appreciate that. All of the things, you can usually find me by my name, Aalia Lanius, or Aalia_unsugarcoated. We have Unsugarcoated Media on Instagram. We have EmpowerCon_LA on Instagram. But yeah, those are the best ways, as well as LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. LinkedIn, I tell people, don't sleep on it. The most powerful business networking tool out there. So I love it. Definitely connect with me on LinkedIn.
Again, I can't thank you enough for the time and the shares, and also to everyone who joined us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thanks for tuning in. Our goal is to create connections and inspire conversations about building great companies. So please subscribe, rate, review, and share this podcast with your network. Sharing is caring. If you're a business leader or executive team ready to take your leadership and company to the next level with high-performing teams, we'd love to see how we can rocket fuel your growth. Check out the show notes to book your free Builders Business Booster call, where you'll receive a strategic leadership assessment and 3 concrete focus areas to mature and grow your business. You'll also find the link to join the Builders Club to stay up to date on upcoming events, get valuable tools and insights, as well as be the first to receive exciting announcements straight to your inbox. No spam, I promise. You'll also find my website, alexsnyder.com, and all the places to peep my creds, hear what clients have to say, and see if I went to the gym today. And one final note, this podcast is not intended to be legal, tax, or other professional advice. Thanks for joining. We'll catch you on the flip side.